You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 10th of October. Muslims were protesting all last week. Archbishop speaks out against gay marriage at last. Want to fund terrorism? Donate to foreign aid. Tens of thousands of Greeks demonstrate against Merkel in Athens. Girls as young as 4 years given in marriage, Supreme Court to investigate. Netanyahu to call early elections in Israel in 2013. Romney calls for changes in foreign policy regarding Syrian rebels. Thought for the day, a few facts of life. And finally, sweet and sour pork, anyone? UK news. Last week, London was positively buzzing with Muslim protests. For instance, 50 or 60 Muslims prayed outside Westminster Cathedral. No one knows if the church gave permission. The person filming this desecration was approached by the police and asked what he thought about this. A clear invitation for him to say something contrary and to be arrested for hate crime. Then you had the disgusting scenes where Muslims were protesting against the removal of that odious piece of scum, Abu Hamza, and his cohorts to America, where, by the way, they removed his hooks. There were scenes of the police being assaulted and sworn at, and no arrests were made. A note from a World Date reporter who comments, "A word for Little John in the mail. Hamza was not deported, he was extradited, a very different procedure, and his stinking family are still here on our money." We also had the protests against the stupid video Innocence of Muslims, and finally the Atheist Society at Reading University were ejected from the Freshers' Fair after displaying a pineapple labelled with the name of the Prophet Muhammad. A World Date spokesperson commented the Muslims were protesting variously against the extradition of a terrorist, a film and a pineapple. Is there nothing these people will not protest about, apart from when they blow us up, as in 7/7 or of course the US in 9/11? Lord Carey, the Archbishop of Canterbury, has opined that gay marriage could have drastic consequences, including the risk of polygamy. In a speech at this week's party conference, Lord Carey will say same-sex marriages strike at the very fabric of society. He will also say it's difficult to know at this stage what the consequences would be if gay marriage were introduced. But he will cite developments in other countries where the law is being liberalised, including France, where the government intends to ban the words mother and father from official documents, replacing them with parents. Lord Carey also feels that the government needs to confront the divisive issue of immigration, and he added, "We can be sure any move away from our traditional understanding of marriage is to put our society on a slippery slope where the unintended consequences could be shocking." More good use of foreign aid. Apparently the aid we send to the Palestinian authorities is being used to fund the families of terrorist families who have murdered civilians. In fact, the longer the sentence, more of our money is given to the families of those terrorists, and the families of suicide bombers are especially rewarded. Apparently you're wrong if you thought that foreign aid was to alleviate poverty and to provide education. It doesn't. In most cases it does fund murder, mayhem and destruction. This is bad enough at the best of times, but at a time when the UK has no money and we are facing yet more cuts, it is utterly inexcusable. The UK will spend an average of £86 million per year in the Occupied Palestinian Territories until 2015, according to the government. A World at 8 spokesman said, "Cameron keeps talking about a moral duty to provide foreign aid. Is this what he meant? Stop all foreign aid now and spend it on our people." European news. The citizens of Athens turned out in their thousands to protest against the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the austerity measures. As Germany and Merkel put the largest amount of money into the bailout pot, the Greeks view her as a reason for the ongoing measures. Despite their government's ban on protests, an estimated 40,000 people, many carrying banners showing Merkel as a Nazi and flying the swastika, congregated on Syntagma Square and pelted the riot police with rocks. The authorities deployed 7,000 police, water cannon and a helicopter, and snipers were in place to protect the Chancellor. This was Merkel's first visit to Athens and she came to support the Prime Minister, Antonis Samaras, and his reforms. World news from Islamabad. A tribal council, which is allegedly overseen by lawmaker Mir Tariq Mazuri in Dera Bukti district of Balochistan, decided last month to give away 13 girls between the ages of 4 years and 16 years in marriage under the controversial Vani system to resolve a dispute between two tribal groups, which has prompted the Supreme Court to take action against those responsible. A World Date writer has commented, "Fine, but those ages are simply appalling. Here we are taking away the headstone of a man who has allegedly abused underage girls and erasing him already from history. And do not think I'm condoning his crimes, whilst in certain Muslim communities in the UK we are actually paying 2 Muslim paedophiles who, whilst unproved of murder, are still guilty of statutory rape." From Jerusalem. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said he will call new parliamentary elections in early 2013, which is roughly 8 months ahead of schedule. He's been forced to do so because the coalition could not agree on a budget. In his foreign policy speech at the Virginia Military Institute on Monday, Mitt Romney highlighted many changes he would make to the foreign aid policy held by President incumbent Barack Obama. Regarding Syria, he stated that his administration would identify and organise those members of the opposition who share our values and ensure they obtain the arms they need to defeat Assad's tanks, helicopters and fighter jets. A policy that is more aggressive than providing the non-lethal help with which Obama administration is currently doing for the opposition forces. But this is not as clear-cut as heard, as Romney did not say openly that he would arm the Syrian rebels, as the close American allies of Saudi and Qatar are already providing weapons to them, as indeed are Al-Qaeda, who forms part of the tangled mass of sectarian Islamic rebels that are the opposition forces. Thought for the day. A few facts of life today in the UK. Now, if you think I'm going to be depressing, you're wrong. I'm desperately trying to look on the funny side of life in the UK today and why the British National Party is the only political organisation to try to change it for the better. First, I would say that down in Hampshire we had an officers' meeting 2 nights ago. It was fairly well attended, but certainly not filled to capacity with activists. This particular question came up. Why are our activists non-activists in the South East and South West? A few answers presented themselves: lack of money and funding, apathy from the public and our own people, and members who seem to think that being members and agreeing with our policies is enough. In some ways it is, and as long as the darlings get to the polling booths in timely fashion, we're all okay as our membership is rising. What is the basis of non-activity down here? Well, ignorance is one of them, and I don't mean the ignorance of our people, I mean the lack of communication between groups, branches and all and sundry. Often our right hand does not know what the left hand's doing, and some people are confused about the way forward for the British National Party in this region. We also down here have had to contend with traitors and people who leave, or rather simply do not vanish into the woodwork, but leave to either foul-mouth our party or start up some new organisation where they can be kingpins, most of which fail miserably. Some of our best organisers have been targeted and have fallen by the wayside. They're always welcome back provided they have seen the error of their ways. One of our conversations was that on speaking to members of the public, which most of us do, they agree totally with all our principles, vociferously one might say. But if you mention the British National Party and joining, they go a whiter shade of pale and start wobbling precariously. I simply do not understand the majority of English people who hate immigration and what it does for our country, and yet do nothing against it. What does the average Brit actually do against the most devious form of colonisation known to man? Nothing. In fact, by not joining us, they're part of the problem, not the solution. Many a Brit will take to the web and Facebook and give everyone holy hell on most of the subjects we, as a party, cover. Then they promptly go out and buy a Chinese or Indian takeaway or a kebab, hopefully not human, and in reality fund more terrorism of one sort or another. We have effectively as a nation been turned into a gigantic consumer and non-productive society, on which at least a couple of generations of immigrants have effectively fed off and bred off. I have started in my mind an organisation called Civilian Action Against Immigration. Only in my mind, of course. But I'll tell you what it entails and then you can give me the advice on what to do. It entails boycotting. Simple as that. Do not buy Chinese goods for a start. They are bad for your health. I looked in Superdrug the other day and there were 3 new stands of makeup for little girls. And we wonder why our youngsters are in trouble. All made in China and all crap. Do not allow your little girls to buy this stuff. It contains lead and arsenic and they do experiment on animals, although judging from the stuff that gets through, the mind boggles at what doesn't. On an aside, apparently Avon is now getting stuff from China and I for one am boycotting them now. You will be shocked to know how many of our old high street cosmetics are actually made in China. Clothes made in China have faulty dyes which can affect your skin. Nail polishes are full of formaldehyde and worse. In short, if anything, even a car is made in China. With few exceptions, it will be bottom of the barrel. I'm not even touching on the dog and cat skins that decorate cheap anoraks, etc. As the Chinese medicines, save the bears and the tigers. Just think if it was good for you, it would not come to the UK. We are effectively in this country keeping certain mainland Chinese in great style buying this effluence. Foreign takeaways are easy to boycott. You will not starve if you do not have a kebab or whatever, and your stomach might be the better for it. Immigrant-owned corner shops do a sterling trade in under-the-counter cigarettes and tobacco which are not fit for purpose, as are the market traders and their imitation goods. Every time you buy, you are funding someone else's country for something. The same goes for alcohol and drugs. You are directly funding terrorism, as you are with pirating DVDs, etc. The Third World and the Far East learnt long ago that we in the UK are lazy and they set out to profit from that, and they do. So boycotting is the way forward for direct action for Mozart here. Back to the BNP. As a party we have had to fight media and press blackouts and spurious allegations. We've had to fight internal business becoming external business. We have had to fight slander and libel and unnecessary court cases. We have had to fight vitriolic speeches and pamphlets, in fact verging on hate rants against management from idiots waiting for the second coming or the Antichrist, I'm not really sure which. We have survived and we will survive, but we need action from our members and indeed the public, because what is happening to this country is happening now, not in 20 years' time. I may rant against Muslims in this country, but I have good reason to. I read a letter in Tuesday's Mail from a Muslim who is at the University College London and is president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association. Now this organisation, which is worldwide and vast and whose mantra is love for all and hatred for none, rather like the UAF and love not hate cretins, believe that Jesus was, and I quote, a humble prophet of God. And the Ahmadi Muslims also hold the unique belief that Jesus, peace be upon him, survived the crucifixion and travelled towards India to continue his ministry amongst the lost tribes of Israel. Furthermore, they claim that his tomb, containing his body, has been recently discovered in India, where it can be seen to this day. Ahmadi Muslims also assert that this belief is not only upheld by the Holy Koran and the sayings of Muhammad, but even by the Holy Bible itself. Now on an aside, it is the Ahmadiyya Foundation that bought a hotel in Surrey with 36 acres for 150 young males for a school. They also run the Jalsa Salana Festival in Alton, Hampshire, which last month hosted 30,000 Muslims. Now I'm not one to offend any faiths. I do believe that different people believe in different things and I'm okay with that, just not to the extent of converting or colonising my country and my people. I wish they thought the same. This Ahmadiyya Youth Association is the Muslim equivalent of the Hitler Youth, and in fact more dangerous because the Teutons were dedicated to their past and AMYA is dedicated to putting themselves firmly in our future. This president is canting on about the pineapple debacle from the Reading atheists, which I found rather amusing and desperate, There were no atheists on the Titanic, I believe. But NASA here is hosting a series of events in Imperial College and Queen Mary's College, London, entitled The Innocence of Muhammad, in a bid to educate students about his character and his life. Well, that will be a doozy, won't it, for the future semi-educated and liberal dwarves of society, and probably future governments. Now, why are these scroats allowed to hold meetings like this when our Nick Griffin is not allowed to speak at a students' union because of offending people? Why are we allowing Muslims in all their rag-headed and pantalooned buffoonery to actually worship outside Christian Westminster Abbey when Christians cannot even wear a cross to work in this country? Why are the government and police allowing these people to even be here, let alone take over with their particular form of worship? Answer: they are obviously believing the words of Poison, in which NASA quotes, "We believe such education is the only path that leads to peace and reconciliation, the only path the Prophet himself, may Allah bless him, would have embraced." These quotes are simply not true and should never be taken at face value. The only thing which would make me actually believe this sentiment and the rest of the self-inflating tripe they seem to spout is when most of the Muslim population voluntarily decide to decamp and leave this country in a peaceful fashion for much sunnier climes. To do this before we are all subjected to Sharia laws and conversion would prove they are not attempting what I think, and might make me think twice on the genuine messages. Because I do not believe all this peace and love, especially because the undertones of the message they send, peace and reconciliation, mean just that. Their peace with a Sharia indoctrinated country and our reconciliation or conversion to Islam. In my book, these two faiths will never live together, and in fact history has proved it, and nowadays various countries are also proving it as well. Whenever you get Muslims in any sort of numbers, and believe me, they move in great numbers because of their multi-ethnicity, you get takeovers of people and land. That is how they work. So ignore messages of peace and love, ignore handouts in the street of sweets for your children, do not ignore the grooming of your daughters, try not to keep them in funds with shops, market stalls and anything else, and we might have some sort of fight back on our hands, which is good. The British National Party knows, without help and support, the British people will become weaker, and Islam does not respect weakness. Like the old adage, what do you do with a doormat? You walk right on over it. And finally, a Chinese pensioner decided to eat a young person who pushed in front of him on a tube train. The unnamed pensioner launched the shocking attack in the Chinese city of Guangzhou after the teenager was believed to have pushed in front of him as they waited to board a subway train. Although there were a number of empty seats on the train, the disgruntled 70-year-old man pursued the teenager whilst berating him. A witness claimed the pensioner struck the younger man before a fight broke out, ending with the 70-year-old digging his teeth into the teenager's flesh and drawing blood. Frightened passengers on the train called the police, who boarded at the next stop. Both men were apprehended but were later released after admitting their wrongdoings. The teenager was reported to have refused to have his injuries treated at a hospital. The pensioner was merely reported as being fed up. This presenter says, personally I prefer a number 11 with fried rice and spare ribs, but I better get my order in before I start boycotting. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.